he's it's interesting. Like somebody said to me once, DC should be fighting middleweight. And I'm like, go stand next to him and say that.
He's core
a tank.
is like this thick.
Yeah, he's a tank.
Like, he's a big dude.
Yeah, he might only be 5'10".
Well, they
he's
say that because he's a little
dense.
chubby, but he's stronger than anybody can imagine. You don't pick up Dan Henderson.
How about Josh Barnett? Remember when he was fighting heavyweight in Strikeforce? Yes. He picked up Josh Barnett like he was a pillow and slammed him on the ground.
That's what I mean. Like the guy, like blows my mind how good he is.
Yeah,
and I don't think
phenomenal
people give him
wrestler.
enough credit. Like,
yeah,
I know DC on a training level. When I watch him train on a personal level, I mean, he's DC. He's crazy. He's always talking out of his butt, to an extent. It's hilarious, but he's a beast, man. You got to respect that.
Yeah, I love that guy.
Me too.
He's a great guy. He's in the era of John Jones, and he lost to John in his first fight, and he's also dealing with the fact that John, although I love John too, John's a fuck up, and so he's got to sort of be there while John keeps fucking up, and then a lot of it comes back to him.
But that's where I look at DC and why I try to give him all the respect in the world I can, because I don't feel that people give enough respect to DC for the fact that he's not fucking up.
Right. No, he's a great guy.
How come you don't?
Right.
How does that get overlooked? Well, I think a lot of it has to do with people can connect to fuck-ups.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Too.
There's
because,
that.
I mean, and John Jones is that good.
Yeah.
That's the other thing.
He's
literally that good.
He's that good he could beat you after he did coke 3 weeks ago.
I don't know what to say about that.
That's the thing about John.
I'm good enough to win after 3 surgeries, So let's see. We can test the waters on both. Let's see who does what. I'll do a line of coke next time and then try to jump in there and see how I do. And let's blow his knees out 3 times, and then we'll see who's better.
Well, that's a different animal, I mean, it's interesting that sometimes people are just supremely talented physically, and they don't have to deal with as many trials and tribulations in that regard. He's very gifted. Like John, like it's interesting. I've always said this. Like, there's a way that John gets a hold of people that you could almost tell when he gets a hold of them that they really have never felt anything like that before. And you saw it with DC. DC, who's a supremely talented wrestler. I mean, one of the best wrestlers to ever compete in MMA.
Period.
John Jones got a hold of him, and you could see DC was like, oh shit. Like, this guy is no joke.
I agree. I mean,
John's a stud.
Yeah.
He's a fucking stud.
He's that good.
He's that good.
He's that good.
But
and so is DC, though. DC could still beat him. I really believe that.
It's entirely possible. There was still a very close fight.
I would probably, if I had to choose on paper, you take Jones depending on how healthy he is.
Well, DC was so furious that he didn't fight him in the Oven St. Preux fight because he was like, I would have beat that John Jones. Because I did commentary with him in that fight. He's like, I would have beat that John Jones.
And here's another thing on that, okay? Because how's that? That might not be true either.
Right.
Because that John Jones would have trained differently for you than he trained for Oven St. Preux.
Yeah.
And he hates...
Well, the Oven St. Preux was a very late replacement.
Don't forget this, though. I mean, how much does he hate DC? He's not going to let that get away from him.
Oh, yeah.
It's a different level of training you're doing for different people and where your emotions are with that human being.
That's a really good point.
It is.
But don't you think that was a big factor in the first fight as well? Because DC was very emotionally wrapped up in fighting John. It was very intense because he had never had anybody disrespect him like that. They had that fist fight at the press conference.
That definitely had to do with it.
Sure.
Of course. That has to do with every fight. It has to do with my fights. It has to do with all of them. You have to calculate. It had to do with Conor McGregor's fights.
Oh, yeah.
Ronda Rousey's fights.
Oh, yeah.
Anderson Silva's fights when he's showboating. Everything. I mean, you can go... The list goes on of the mental problems that a lot of these athletes have had, and usually if the mental isn't there, they lose.
Yeah.
It comes down to that.
And you also got to go back to the way Daniel Cormier handled Rumble. He's the only guy that's been able to eat Rumble shots, absorb them, and come back and break him. That was, I mean... Yeah,
he ate that right hand and just hit his head on the floor, woke back up, and then went after it.
Yeah.
And that's, that's respectable, too, that I don't think fans or anybody can really understand what it takes to get slightly knocked out, stand back up, and want to keep going.
Yeah.
That's a different level of understanding of the sport. Like, as an athlete, when I watch a fighter go through that and keep their composure, move around, and deal with that problem, and then... even if they lose, but stay in the fight and go the distance and tough it out. Like, Diego Sanchez is a great example of that.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you not respect and have a real logical understanding that human being is built from something different?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, that's insane. There's
fighters that come back, and there's fighters that almost never come back. It's really interesting. Like we were talking about like BJ Penn, one of the all-time greats. I can't remember a fight where BJ was losing where he came back and won. Frankie Edgar, on the other hand, you can never count that motherfucker out, ever.
True.
Frankie Edgar in the Gray Maynard fights, those two chaotic fights, was so close to being stopped in the first round, where Gray Maynard is putting it on him, and Frankie's going down and down again and stumbling around the octagon, and Gray keeps catching him, and Frankie goes on to stop him. I mean, that was insane. Those two fights were insane.
And he should go down as one of the best ever for that fight. You know, I mean, it's like stuff like
for
that.
Both of those fights. The one where they won to a draw, and then the other one when he beat him.
And it's true. I mean, you gotta. It's hard though, because there's so many crazy fights that you can give credit to everybody.
Yep. Yeah.
And it's like, how do you really dictate who gets what where?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we're all putting our life out there on the line too. So every single one of these is just as serious as the next, and every single one of us is sacrificed just as much as the next. So at what point do you really start drawing the line as to who is the best and who isn't? I think it has to come down to who stays the best the longest.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
How else do you really...
That's why I put Fedor over Kane as the best heavyweight of all time, although I still think I maintain that Kane, when he was at his best, as far as like what I see him, what he was able to do to guys, and what I see from his performance inside the octagon, especially his cardio as a heavyweight,